remember when it was going poorly for the Bills, it felt inevitable at times that Stefan Diggs would not be back in 2024. And I
Yeah.
still think there's going to be questions about that.
Agreed.
They tried a long ball to him and I was surprised at the candor of Jim Nantz and Tony Romo. I believe it was Nantz who said he should have caught it.
Yeah.
It was one of the two. It was
It
Nantz
was.
or Romo. Was it Nantz?
It was Nance. It was Nance at
Yeah.
first, and then they watched the replay, and Romo was like, "Oh man, it went right through his hands." Right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
And that's the closest thing you're going to hear to criticism, because you got to play it down the middle if you're going to broadcast a game. You don't want to have the one side, oh, you hate my team or you love the other team, you're biased or whatever, but it's stating the obvious. Also, you don't want to criticize players either. They're out there doing their best. But Stefan Diggs should have caught it.
Yeah.
And it was one of those moments that would have resulted in a momentum swing,
Exactly.
and a huge chunk of yardage being gained.
Right.
The Bills would have had at least one play of 20 yards or more for the night if Stefan Diggs had caught that pass. But that's why they brought him here. That's the skill set he has. Those are the moments he's had in the past. That's what made it so surprising. And it goes back to your point that it feels like at times it's just too much Josh Allen.
Yeah.
And he is incredible.
Right.
The stuff he was doing, like, it was heavyweight fight. It was Thriller in Manila.
Exactly.
It was Ali versus Frazier or Foreman or everybody else Ali fought that was a big fight. It was incredible. It felt like it was going to be toe-to-toe, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth until regulation ended or overtime concluded. It felt like it was going to be one of those games. That's why it felt so weird when all of a sudden the brakes kind of got put on it in the fourth quarter.
Right.
Like just as we're getting ready for the scoreboard to light up, it just kind of, because I was watching 30-27. I got it. Holy crap. Early on, I'm thinking there's no way 30-27. It's going to be 50-47. And then as we're getting close, I'm thinking, they get down there. Tyler Bass makes that field goal. It's 27 all. Chiefs work their way down the field, walk-off field goal. Nothing like having a hole-in-one on your score prediction for a playoff game. But that Tyler Bass, that was the ultimate kibosh. I mean, we talk about this all the time where an announcer will point out that a guy hasn't missed a kick in X number of weeks or the Gary Anderson thing.
Right.
And Nance was so far over the top talking about how Sean McDermott praises Tyler Bass. And we have complete faith in Bass that when there's a huge kick to be made, he will make it. And there it goes. Wide right. Scott Norwood. Unbelievable. With the, a gotta have it kick with the season on the line. It started toward the middle.
Yeah.
And it didn't even look all that gusty.
I know. It's hard to tell.
And there it went. Oh, that angle. If you're a Bills fan, you never want to see that angle. Like, don't even put a camera down there. I don't want to see that angle of the ball passing the upright like that. It looked just like Scott Norwood's ball going by the uprights when you were a kid and you were enjoying the Giants winning the Super Bowl, even though Phil didn't play in that game. You still enjoyed it. Still got a ring for it. Still the G-men winning.
Yeah.
So
no, it did. It had shades of that. It felt like that. I feel for the Buffalo Bills. Their ability to fight, rally, it's more than commendable. It really is. And they hung in there last night and, of course, played some great football. And my thoughts on Josh Allen. I think he's one of the greatest talents I've ever seen in the sport, and he's clearly one of the best players in football. He is. But they need to do, more around him. That's just the bottom line, right? Like, the bottom line is like, here's one for you. Since Jordan Love was drafted by the Green Bay Packers, right, in the last few years, they've drafted 6 receivers and almost that many tight ends, right, in the 5th round or above. Here's Josh Allen deep into his career. I think they've drafted one guy, receiver, tight end, in front of the 4th round. That's it, right? That's where they got to start going they got to stop. Instead of going, hey, Josh Allen is so awesome, he'll cover up holes on the offense, let's spend our money everywhere else. They got to start going, let's invest on our best investment and see where that takes us. Instead of him having to carry the load, let's make everything great around him. So then it just becomes so tough to defend. What do you defend? It's hard to stop Allen running, the quarterback runs, the scramblings. Oh no, there's people downfield that we need to double and do that. That's where I'd like to see them go. Certainly. And that's where it's just too much on Josh Allen. And of course, yeah, when the great defense like the Chiefs and Steve Spagnuolo, once they got a feel early on how they were being attacked, you saw it was Buffalo had to manage drives. They had to be careful. They had to really be like, okay, it's 3rd and 3. What's our play for 4 yards? We got to try to do it that way. And it was just too hard that way, where we saw Kansas City get in the mode as the game went on, where it was like, wow, my gosh, they're just 5 plays, touchdown, boom, 6 plays, touchdown. And, that's to me the difference in those two football teams.
I have some thoughts on that. Before we get to that, let's hear from Josh Allen after the game on losing yet again to the Chiefs in a single elimination setting.
Sucks. Losing sucks. Losing to them, losing to anybody at home sucks. Here, there, it doesn't matter. We just losing sucks. I don't know what else to say. Yeah, I don't think it's a big change. I think it's just, again, we gotta find a way to score one more point than they do. And every season, if you don't win, it's a failed season. That's the nature of the business. There's one happy team at the end of the season, really. And when it's not you, when you're so close, it sucks.
That last answer was in response to a question of whether or not he believes minor tweaks are necessary or major changes moving forward. And, there was a moment during the season where we thought very major changes would be, could be, and even should be made to the Buffalo Bills after the loss on the Monday night in November to the Broncos that resulted in the firing of Ken Dorsey. We thought it was just a matter of time before Sean McDermott followed, barring a dramatic turnaround. We thought maybe Brandon Beane, the general manager, was in grave danger. Is there another kind? Barring a dramatic turnaround. We got the dramatic turnaround. But now that the great story ended, you got to take a step back and ask yourself, will there be a decision made at the ownership level of the Buffalo Bills that, contrary to what Josh Allen says, we just need to find a way to score one more point? If they listen to the things that Chris Simms says about the flaws in the team, will there be major changes, even for a team that got to the divisional round? And this is the same conversation, similar conversation to what we had last week about Nick Sirianni.
Right.
Potentially in trouble in Philly. How can he be in trouble after 3 straight winning seasons, playoff seasons? How can he be in trouble a year after taking the team to the Super Bowl? Well, John Fox got fired year after taking the team to the Super Bowl, year after losing. The week after losing in the divisional round in 2014. So it's not unprecedented, and we don't know what ownership's thinking. I'm not taking a position on the issue, but you got some big name coaches out there. You got Josh Allen. And you have to wonder, and I think if you are Terry Pagula, the owner of the team, you're not doing justice to the franchise if you don't at least sit down and think this through. Do we keep going with what has failed to get us to a Super Bowl, despite having Josh Allen for the same number of years as the starter as Patrick Mahomes, who's gone to the AFC Championship game 6 out of 6 times, and Josh Allen's been there once?
All right.
Or do we make some sort of dramatic move when a Mike Vrabel is available, when a Jim Harbaugh is available, when a, dare I say, William T. Belichick is available? And I have no idea if his middle initial is T. It just sounds good. So it's you, at least you're doing a disservice to yourself and the team you own and the city if you don't just think about it. I'm not saying do it, but how can you not at least sit down and think about it, Chris?
Well, I think
because you keep doing the same thing and you keep getting the same result.
I hear you there. That's exactly right. And too, what we've seen in these situations is about expectations and where you expect the team to go, not necessarily like, oh, it was a good year and that's enough to keep your job. We get that, right? It's about no. We thought we were a Super Bowl team and we can't get there. So that I think adds a little bit more to the situation, right? I also think, hey, Terry Pagula ownership too. You can't forget, like we started off the show, we're talking about one of the great teams in the history of football with a guy that's, I mean, he's going down a lane here where he's just like, it's Mahomes, it's Brady and Manning. I mean, that's what we're looking at right now as far as this guy at quarterback. So, they're losing to a special team. I don't think they can lose sight of that. I think I would not make a change, Mike. I would not. Where Terry Pegula, I think I would sit back and go, hey, guys, obviously we got to readjust. And this is where I'd like to see him jump in and, hey, Brandon Beane, hey, we got to spend some money this offseason, right? Let's be aggressive in the draft. Let's start to go all in on the Josh Allen situation a little bit more and apply pressure that way and see if we can't become a little bit more of a dangerous, explosive team like we see the other top teams in football. Again, when Tony Romo, who's played a ton of football, kind of tells you Josh Allen played perfect tonight, other than the one play we showed where he kind of got hit as he was throwing, Diggs was open underneath, right? But other than that, when Tony Romo tells you that, and that still is relegated to 186 yards and 1 touchdown, there's something wrong there. It's not good enough, right? Our superstar quarterback's playing perfect, and it's 189, and he's making incredible scrambles and runs, and we're still having trouble. And that to me is the blinking lights. Wait, superstar quarterback, defense pretty good. Wait, something's not working. And that to me is where we get back into the support around him, some different playmakers there, right? Guys that can make a play, break an ankle, shoot up the sideline for 40 or 50 yards. And that's where I think they're limited, and that's where I think they need to go back to the drawing board, like you've heard me say, and try to get some of those guys.
And this is the challenge for an owner who, by all appearances, doesn't meddle. Are you going to start meddling now and telling the people you've hired to do the job what they need to do differently? Right? And I've had coaches tell me, look, they all meddle. They just meddle in different degrees of obviousness, but they all have a finger, if not an entire ladle in the stew. But for Pegula, I think the deeper question is, do I trust these guys to do what they need to do? Do I get somebody else to come in and do something different than what they've done? And I guess the middle ground is, I'm going to tell them what they need to do. And if I'm an owner who hires people and trusts them to do the job and gets out of the way, it's counter to that. If all of a sudden I'm telling them, hey, I was watching these two knuckleheads on Peacock this morning and they were talking about what we need to do. You need to do what they said. Like, why is he exercising that prerogative when he's letting them do their thing? So it's almost like, what's the old saying? With great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
When you say, I'm going to let you guys run things, it's kind of like how Robert Kraft handled Bill Belichick. You're running everything. And if it doesn't work, it's on you. It's not on me. I'm not telling you what to do. It's on you. If it's not good enough, then it just ends. So I think that's the real question before we ponder who else is out there and who could come in and make the difference. I think Terry Pegula has to ask himself, do I trust the people that I have who have been producing the same result year in and year out, close but no cigar? How do we improve that with the people who have produced the same result year in and year out, close but no cigar? That's the tough question.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not saying that there should be a change of general manager or change of coach. And I know that folks in Buffalo get very sensitive when we say or write these things. All I'm saying is Terry Pegula owes it to himself, to the team he owns, and to the city of Buffalo and all those fans to at least work through the options and make a good decision. You don't just say, well, that was fine. That worked out. Let's run it back next year without even questioning it. I think you at least need to question it.
I agreed. And I think bottom line is, and we this is really the third year in a row we've said this at this time of the year, there needs to be more sizzle players on the Bills, period. I mean, again, Tony Romo, Jim Nantz, they're doing the game there. I mean, we didn't talk about a Bills defensive lineman the whole night, right? There was not one guy you ever talked about because they were non-existent. They got pushed around in the run game. Mahomes had all day to throw the football, all day, Right. And, back to one of the things we say all the time, right? I mean, from that standpoint, hey, Kansas City was the better team on the field last night. They're the healthier team. It's going to be a better matchup that they won last week. I would have worried about Buffalo next week, against the Ravens. So that's going to be great. We know that. The other thing, Mike, I'll just bring up with Buffalo is I think the biggest thing they're going to have to figure out is what do they want to do with Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator. He did a really good job. He took over a really tough situation. We saw, though, as the year went on, teams figured out how to defend them a little bit. Yesterday they relied on Josh Allen run game and some of that stuff once again to kind of get them through. But there was no schematical, oh, look what they're doing to the Chiefs today, or ooh, there's this, right? There really isn't that aspect, and that's to me, do they stand their ground with Joe Brady and go, hey, we think he'll continue to grow and get better and better? Or do they find somebody else and try to find their new Brian Daboll, right, who can come in, rein Josh Allen in a little bit so he doesn't have the turnovers he did this year and get the best out of him that way? I'll be interested. That, to me, is going to be one of the biggest decisions they have in the organization is what to do with the OC, Joe Brady, and where do they want to go with that offense.
Great point. And you're right, because yes, it was enough to turn it around late in the season.
Yeah.
When it was a new tweak. Is it enough? Is it the right approach when you're talking about week in and week out from week 1 through week 18, and you need to be able to deal with the ebbs and flows and the shifts and the changes and everything that goes into being an offensive coordinator for a defensive-minded head coach, where you have a lot more power and a lot more authority than you do in a city where the head coach has an offensive background.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.